unless you've been under a rock somewhere, you had to have been hearing about Georgia Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis being in the news for an alleged affair with a Trump prosecutor. So I said, who could we get on here? And so joining me to talk about that side of it, she is a very prominent conservative Republican activist. She's been featured in, her work has been in Breitbart. She's appeared on CNN, MSNBC, Fox Business Channel, New York Times. I could go on and on and on, but I don't want to waste time doing that. And she's also, remember the Tea Party? She's one of the national co-founders of that and also of that party here in Georgia. So joining us tonight live at 8:19, she is Debbie Dooley. Debbie, thank you so much for being with us.
Well, I'm honored you would ask me to be on your show. Thank you.
Absolutely. So let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and just jump right into Georgia District Attorney Fani Willis and what's going on with that. People heard the introduction. They heard that I said that obviously you're a Donald Trump supporter. I don't know if I said that. You are a conservative. You're known, your grassroots programs, you're known out there. What are your thoughts when it comes to Georgia District Attorney Fani Willis?
Well, I think Fani has developed the tactic of two-pronged strategy of duck and deflect the charges that were brought by Mr. Roman and his attorney. She ducked it because she refused to defend herself. She said she would do it in her court filings and let her court filings speak for herself, and she would answer the charges. Then she goes to a prominent African-American church, I think it's Bethel AME, and she was there on Martin Luther King Day, and she defends her lover, her alleged lover, Nathan Wade, in church. Apparently, she did not read that scripture where it said, "Thou shalt not commit adultery." And then she's trying to deflect by claiming racism. It's not racism. It's not about the color of your skin. It's about right and wrong and being responsible with taxpayer dollars.
We are talking to prominent Georgia conservative activist Debbie Dooley. She's on the phone right now. In case you're under a rock, Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis, the first woman in that position. She's also African-American, is in national, dare I say, international news for an alleged affair with someone who got a lot of money, who she hired to prosecute what's going on, the allegations against former President Donald Trump here. So as we watch this play out in national media, Debbie, there's something that happened. There's an investigation now that's going on into DA Fani Willis.
Yes, the state Senate passed a resolution to form a committee to investigate Fani Willis, investigate to see if there's impropriety with Nathan Wade. And the interesting thing about this committee, it doesn't have to be approved. It has subpoena power. Fani will have to testify under oath. It doesn't have to be approved by Governor Kemp or by the Georgia House. And I think this is good. We need the truth to come out. I am surprised that some of the employees, the assistant prosecutors in her office, have not filed EOC complaints against her for, discrimination in regard to Nathan Wade. I cannot find where he has ever prosecuted a case. In Cobb County, I saw a document from the Cobb Superior Court said he has never prosecuted a case in Cobb County. This guy's never had RICO experience, prosecuting RICO, which is what this is against Donald Trump and the other defendants. And she's paid him $600 and something thousand for as little experience as he had. My understanding is there's another prosecuting attorney that works for her that actually had RICO experience. So I think this was a huge mistake on her part to try to claim racism. It's not racism.
And of course, a lot of people are looking at this as someone going and as I listened to her whole message at that church, someone going after a young black single woman. How does this, let me play devil's advocate here, though. Let's say DA Fani Willis did have an affair with the special prosecutor, violates moral laws, and it violates if they use taxpayers' money, still alleged. Does that affect anything if Donald Trump had any improprieties here in the state of Georgia?
I think the right thing would be for them to recuse themselves. I don't know if that's up to a judge to decide if the whole case is tainted. The interesting thing is with a lot of the the special electors, the alternate electors that were chosen. Van Jones, CNN commentator Van Jones, called on, I think it was Pennsylvania or one other state, advocated that they should seat, because if the election was going to be so close, they should seat alternate electors. I don't see anyone going after Mr. Jones for that.
We've got about a minute left, Debbie. I have to ask you this question because president of the Georgia chapter of the NAACP, as you know, Gerald Griggs, Attorney Griggs, is coming on after this. In about 30 seconds or so, is there voter suppression in the state of Georgia right now in 2024 as we are right at the top of an election year?
No, there's not. And if you look at the people that are turning out to vote, if you look at that turned out in 2022, there were record numbers. That's not voter suppression. It's called election integrity.
Election integrity. Debbie Dooley, conservative activist all over the place. She's based out of here in Georgia. And needless to say, you're fighting for Donald Trump. What do you think his chances are of being president again? Oh,
he's going to be the next president. He will be 47. He will win because the people are looking at this. Average Americans are looking at these persecutions. They're not prosecutions. They're persecutions of him. And they're like, if they can go after someone as powerful and as rich as Donald Trump, what can they do to me? And I think that's going to have an impact on the election.
Debbie Dooley, my first time having you on. We're going to be watching this. We'll chat with you again soon. Georgia conservative activist, thank you so much for your time this evening. And listen in, see what Attorney Gerald Griggs has to say.
I definitely will. It's an honor to be on your show. Thank you.
It's my pleasure. You're listening to MalaniKai, and now joining me live to give the other side and also to talk about voter suppression versus voter integrity. He is the president of the Georgia NAACP, Attorney Gerald Griggs, no stranger to this show. Attorney Griggs, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be with you.
Absolutely. So I know you were listening in to Debbie Dooley. You guys are no strangers to each other. Let's start first with with Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis and the national news that she's in. What is the NAACP in Georgia? Are you backing her? Or what is your position on what's happening? Have you guys made a statement? What's up?
Our position is that there are allegations made in a motion. If those allegations are true, they need to be investigated. But at this point, there are no charges. There's no thorough investigation by any agency that has the power to either, one, punish Fani Willis or two, dismiss the indictment. So right now, it's a political discussion in the media. It has no effect on the case. And I think that when Judge McAfee looks at the motion, he'll make a determination on whether it has any bearing on the RICO indictment against Mr. Trump and his alleged co-conspirators. So at this point, the Georgia NAACP's position is that the case needs to proceed and that the citizens of Georgia need to make a determination on whether or not Mr. Trump and his co-conspirators tried to interfere in the election here in Georgia.
Do you see the two as I asked Debbie Dooley, do you see the two as, does one affect the other? If, let's just hypothetically speaking, she had an affair, does that affect what you think, or maybe what some people think happened in Georgia, that there was election interference? Does one affect the other?
No. I mean, as an attorney, as a practicing lawyer, you know that an indictment will not be overturned simply because there is an allegation that two consenting adults had a relationship. As far as we're concerned right now, it doesn't appear that any laws have been broken by anyone other than the people that the citizens of Fulton County have indicted. So again, it's a novel theory from a defense attorney that placed it in a motion. There's no evidence of it right now, and so it has no bearing on the outcome of this indictment or the criminal proceeding that's pending in Fulton County.
We are on the phone with the Georgia NAACP president, attorney Gerald Griggs. We're going to go to a break real quick, Attorney Griggs. And when we come back, I want to talk to you about what's happening in Georgia, because there's a side that says election integrity, and then there's a side that says there's voter suppression. And I want to get your thoughts and the position of the Georgia NAACP on whether or not there is still voter suppression in Georgia as we right now are in an election year. So we're going to come right back with that. You're listening to MalaniKai having a conversation with Georgia NAACP President Gerald Griggs. Don't touch that dial. 8:45 on a Saturday. You're listening to MalaniKai. I'm live on 95.5 WSB in the middle of a conversation with the Georgia NAACP president, Attorney Gerald Griggs. We talked a little bit about District Attorney Fani Willis in Fulton County, her making national news. Now, Attorney Griggs, I'd like to switch it up. You were listening and you've heard conservative activist Debbie Dooley on before you, and I asked her, are there votes being suppressed in Georgia in 2024? And she said absolutely not. And she talked about voter integrity. So now I'm asking you, as the president of Georgia's NAACP, are we actually in 2024 in the state of Georgia looking at voter suppression?
Absolutely, we are. We only have to look at the passage of Senate Bill 202, which is dubbed the voter suppression bill, to show that there is continued rampant voter suppression throughout the state. So much so that the Georgia NAACP has had to sue the Secretary of State to prevent the continued use of SB 202, and that litigation is still pending in front of Judge Dooley in the Northern District of Georgia. So I respectfully disagree with Debbie Dooley. I understand she has her position, but the facts and evidence are clear, and we believe we will be able to prove that in federal court. And
so for voter suppression for dummies 101, for the average person, we hear those terms, voter integrity and voter suppression, being thrown around. What is voter suppression for someone that just says, I heard it, I actually really don't know what it means?
Voter suppression means to limit the access to the ballot for certain individuals, particularly minority communities. It's like not having enough drop boxes. It's cutting down the length of time for absentee voting. It's cutting down the length of time for a runoff from 8 weeks to 4 weeks. It's making sure that individuals don't have the resources at their local polling precincts. It's attempting to take over local election boards to make sure that polling precincts are limited. These are just some of the tactics that have been used. It's preventing people from providing food and sustenance to individuals who have to stand in those long lines. All of these are examples of things that have happened in Georgia, continue to happen in Georgia, and are being exacerbated by Senate Bill 202, the voter suppression bill.
And so you said we're watching. What exactly are we watching, and when is a timeline that we should start seeing some movement, the average person who's not like into the day-to-day details of what's happening with that bill or the lawsuit? Yeah.
You'll start seeing it from the presidential primaries in March. You'll see it in May for the primaries. And, of course, you'll see it in the general election when you see the long lines wrapping around buildings because there are not enough machines, because there's not enough access, because you cannot actually effectuate a thorough election in certain jurisdictions because of the things that have been put in place by SB 202 and other measures that have been taken by the state of Georgia. So for the average citizen, it's driving and seeing people standing in long lines in certain parts of the community while other people have a breeze to walk through. So it's those type of things that disproportionately disenfranchise a certain group of people and discriminate against them having access to the franchise, which again is the reason why we are currently suing in federal court to make sure these things stop.
And what do we in that particular lawsuit in particular? What is there some type of timeline for that? It's in federal court right now. It's being looked at. Where those were saying, I didn't know that was going on. There's a federal lawsuit. Yes. What are we looking at with that?
So it was filed in 2021. There have been motions. There have been motions for preliminary injunctions. There's been discovery. It's set to go to trial sometime in the summer of this year. Hopefully before the general election. But again, because of certain Supreme Court rulings, it will not take effect before the 2024 general election if we are successful in our lawsuit.
So right now, according to that timeline coming up for the presidential election, you're positively saying, because that cannot be changed, the Georgia NAACP believes that there's going to be voter suppression. Period. Point
Absolutely.
Blank. The end. Because that law cannot be changed before the election.
Absolutely, and we're going to do what we've done before since 2021 when the law came into effect. We will continue to mobilize, and so when individuals like Debbie Dooley say, "Look at the voter turnout," it's not possible for it to be voter suppression. That's because of groups like the Georgia NAACP, the 6th District AME Church, Black Voters Matter, New Georgia Project, mobilizing to outvote the suppression. So when you see record numbers, it's because we're in our community making sure they're aware that there are going to be long lines, that they're going to have to bring their own food and water, that they're going to have to make sure that they get their absentee ballots in, that they make sure that they know where their polling precincts are, continue to check, because they can be changed at a moment's notice because of the local takeovers of local election boards. So we are having to do extra and above what we normally do to make sure we get the vote out.
It's a big year, a big political year. Debbie Dooley told me to ask you off the air, would you come on together so you guys can have these discussions and not talk apart? I said, I'll ask Attorney Griggs.
Absolutely.
Would he come on? Yeah, I thought you would
Absolutely.
say that.
I would love to speak with Debbie. Again, we have different political philosophies, but of course the Georgia NAACP is nonpartisan. We are only interested in making sure that people have access to the franchise and that Georgia's elections are fair, that Georgia's elections have no voter suppression, and that the will of the people is done. So, of course, I would do that.
We're going to do a sit-down, Attorney Griggs. I promise you. We're going to bring cameras, do a sit-down, and chat, talk it out. Thank you so much for always being available. When we call on you to come on the show, we'll keep watching, and then we'll hear from you soon.
I look forward to it. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. The president of the Georgia NAACP, Attorney Gerald Griggs, live with MalaniKai.